we've seen rocket strikes, and we've had reports of airstrikes with aircraft being shot down. What this looks like to me, and the statement that came out of the Indian Ministry of Defence, where they described Op Sindar, is India's response to the terrorist attack that happened a couple of weeks ago in the Kashmiri region, killing a number of Indians. And the Indians accused the terrorist group that's behind it of being linked to the ISI, which is Pakistan's intelligence services. A lot of different groups have got links into the ISI. And that's why India has taken a line that Pakistan as a nation was behind this. And what we see is that India has claimed that it's attacked 9 different sites. They say they're all related to the terror organizations that they believe were responsible overnight, and that has stimulated an understandable response by Pakistan, with Pakistan shelling across the border in a region that has suffered tensions ever since both countries were formed. I think this is simmering tensions that have been there. Their creation, 1947, most of the disputes that there have been, they fought multiple what we'd refer to as wars. They've been skirmishes or conflicts. Most of them have been centered around the Kashmiri region, which there's been disputed ownership over for many years. The worrying thing about these two nations is that the tensions are very real. They've both come from what was a British administered country, which until it was split and Pakistan was created, the tensions were internal ethnic tensions, and they've now split out into interstate tensions. Each state has got nuclear weapons, and that's the most concerning thing about it. And the nuclear weapons are not there to protect them against attack from China or Russia or anyone else. It's focused purely on each other. So anything that inflames the tension, that starts weapons being used, means that they have put a foot and possibly a hand on the escalation ladder. And it's just trying to look at how quickly they could run up that, because emotions run high between the two countries, and emotional responses tend not to be logical, and that's not good when you've got nuclear nations. Now, I think this is something that will blow over relatively quickly, because I think both nations recognize the implications of what's going on, but that doesn't mean that the tension's going to simmer down. We might see more skirmishes in coming days and weeks. All of this depends on what the next moves are by both sides, because India attacked targets inside Pakistan last night. Pakistan has responded and attacked targets inside India. We need to see what the next responses are as to whether that's going to escalate. There have been reports over the last few weeks of both Indian and Pakistani military moving towards the borders. And if we see any ground incursions into the different areas, then this takes the conflict to the next level. Now, that doesn't mean that we're closer to nuclear exchange. It just means that we're seeing an escalatory increase in the fighting that's going on, because you're starting to get then two militaries engaged. They would have to go a long way, I think, before the leaders of either country would consider the use of nuclear weapons. And there have been ground skirmishes leading to ground battles, leading to ground-based wars supported by air forces in the past. 1965, there was a war when Pakistani forces crossed into the Indian administered area of Kashmir. Kashmir split, Pakistan administered area and Indian administered area. In 71, there was another war flared over East Pakistan, where India supported independence forces, and that led to the creation of Bangladesh. So there have been regional tensions that have caused big moves, and none of those have turned into massive conflict. It's too early to tell where this is going to go. I'm hoping that it will de-escalate relatively quickly. We'll start to see soldiers fighting against each other. The one thing the West has got a very close eye on from an intelligence perspective are any nuclear forces and the posture of those nuclear forces around the world. And you can guarantee that Western intelligence, as well as Chinese intelligence and possibly Russian intelligence, but Western intelligence in particular, will be focused on the readiness and the outloading of nuclear stocks inside both Pakistan and India, and monitoring what's happening to them very closely indeed. If there's any indication of escalation getting into that level, I think we will start to see direct involvement from a diplomatic perspective of some senior people. So, U.S. Secretary of State flying into India and Pakistan and carrying out shuttle diplomacy between the two. Of course, the relations between each of the countries and the United States is not quite on an equal par, but we'd start to see more international brokers coming in. The UAE today have come out with a statement urging de-escalation, and actually the UAE is seen by both states as a neutral broker, and you quite a powerful voice. So again, we're starting to see diplomacy trying to de-escalate. We haven't seen indicators of it escalating rapidly yet, but they could come very, very quickly indeed. What happens in political rhetoric and then what happens when orders are given out to troops and all the rest of it tend to be two different things. Pakistan is an interesting country. No matter how democratic you think their elected leaders are, actually the people that run the country, the real power behind it, is split between two organizations. The first one's the military, and the second one is the intelligence services, the ISI. And leaders that are successful in Pakistan know not to upset them, because leaders that do upset them tend to find themselves going through the courts and charges, or getting assassinated, or something else. It has always been that way, and therefore, a more militant sounding government in Pakistan is just one that's playing to the strength that are already there, so that they don't get overthrown by the military and by the intelligence services. India is going slightly more hardline. Is it worrying? It could be, but I'm not seeing or hearing anything that is not measured. I think the Indian response, because they said they were going to respond, they said that they were going to attack. They gave plenty of warning. I think the response is what if this was the United States or the United Kingdom responding to something in the Middle East, would be described in the press as a measured response. But we haven't had the damage assessment on the ground. We know there have been casualties. There are always claims that they're civilian casualties. The numbers, given the number of attacks, numbers of casualties seem quite low to me. So again, that would suggest we're on a potential for de-escalation rather than further escalation.